record here. Yeah, maybe we'll get started and people will, I'm sure, slowly filter in. But welcome everybody to our virtual session today, part of our Reclaiming Cultural Connections, Reigniting Blood Memory series. We are very excited to have one of our knowledge keepers, as well as a health support worker, resolution health support worker, Kathy Pompana. She's going to be sharing about sacred life teachings. So I will let her introduce herself. Just a quick note before I do that though, if everybody can just keep your mic muted, it'll help create a clearer recording. And we will have time for questions later. So if you would like to save your questions for the end, you'll be able to unmute. We'll give the signal and you can unmute yourself and speak your question. Or as we go, if you just think of a question and you don't want to forget it, you can put it into the chat and I'll make sure that Kathy gets those questions at the end. And we'll do our best to address all the questions. So, oh, and a quick introduction, I always forget, but my name is Amanda. I forget to introduce myself. I'm operations assistant with Anish Corporation, as well as AMIC Incorporated, the two companies here. And I help moderate these sessions. I do a lot of administrative support. So if there's anything you need throughout the session or even afterwards, if you'd like to connect with Kathy, or if you have questions about anything Anish related, I can assist with that. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Kathy and we'll begin.
Thanks, Amanda. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat as well. So if there's any questions, I'll see them come up. I don't usually do that because sometimes I have a PowerPoint going and it's too hard to do the two at the same time. So, but anyway, my name is Kathy Pompana. I'm from the Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation, which is about 40 minutes or so west of Brandon. I was born and raised, though, in London, Ontario. And this is because of the 60 scoop. Pardon me. You have to excuse me. I have a bit of a cough, so I'm going to have holes in my mouth most of the time. My mom had two children before me who were both taken in the 60 scoop. And so when she got pregnant with me, somebody told her to run. Leave the province. Your flag won't follow you. And so she did, and that's where she went because there was, there was work there, there was jobs open there. So that's where she went. And so I was born and raised in Southern Ontario, attending the powwows and ceremonies in that region. And although we did come every year, or we tried to when we could come out every summer back to Manitoba to attend some powwows and ceremonies here as well. So I kind of grew up in both regions, and so I do have a lot of knowledge about the ceremonies that occur in that region. But being a Dakota Lakota woman, I'm only going to speak to what I know for sure, and the teachings that I was given. So today's session is going to be basically like protocols and general knowledge, things you would need to know when you're just starting out on your cultural or spiritual journey. Attending ceremonies, what do you need to know beforehand, before going into them? What do they mean? What do these ceremonies, what are they for, really? And some just some guidance on how to do that and where to get started and stuff like that. So I'm going to be talking about, I'll just go through basic protocols. So addressing, or not addressing, but seeking out an elder or a spiritual caregiver. And so throughout this session, I'm going to be calling medicine people, elders, knowledge keepers, I'm calling everybody, I'm putting them under one title of spiritual caregiver because there's so many different names, and they all do different things. But just for the sake of not having to go through each and every name every time, I'm just going to put an umbrella over and call everybody spiritual caregiver. Um, unless it's a particular thing that I'm speaking about, but then everything else will be that one term. So I'll talk about protocols of approaching an elder or spiritual caregiver. Sorry, I just have it labeled as elder here. I'll talk about the Anipi ceremony, which is also called a purification lodge, or which is also known as the sweat lodge. I'll talk about pipe ceremonies, vision quest, and Sundance, and also about bundles and what is a bundle, what is contained in a bundle, how do you start your bundle, that sort of thing. And then I have some other things marked off here. I wasn't planning on talking about them, but if they come up, I have my notes, so just so I'm prepared. And the reason why I have my notes is because this workshop is usually either a full day or 2 days or sometimes more than that, and so condensing it down into 2 hours it's difficult. And I always think I'm going to forget to talk about something. And I don't want to, like, there's some things that I took out just because they're just going to take up time and I don't really need to talk about, but I took the most important parts and put them into my notes so that I talk about them and I don't forget. So I've got my notes and you'll see me flipping through my notes. So the first thing I want to mention is it's good to, when you're starting out, it's good to read books and to, you know, find information in really any way you can. But there are some limitations to that. One book I do recommend, and so this is coming from a Dakota Lakota person. My husband's Ojibwe Cree. He's not here though; he's at work, so I can only speak to what I know and what I'm familiar with. But I mean, it's pretty much the same across the board. There are little differences here and there, and I'll try to address those if I can. But I wanted to show you. This is a very is that backwards? Can you read that? No, it's not backwards. Okay, it's backwards for me. Um, this is a very good book by Albert Whitehat Sr. And we lost him, I think, in 2015, I believe, which is unfortunate. I mean, he was an elderly gentleman, but he had a lot of knowledge to share, and he shared it in some videos, and he also shared it in this book. But I'm going to be using a couple of quotes out of his books. I wanted to show you. It's called Life's Journey: Oral Teachings from Rosebud. So the Zuya is means life's journey. So that's the first thing I want to start with is a quote from this book, chapter 1, pages 8 and 9. And he says, "Once I heard a young boy ask an older friend of his why a certain practice was done in a particular way. And the older boy said, 'Because that's the tradition.' That statement really struck me, and I wondered, why is this tradition? If you don't know the history behind a practice, then the living meaning is lost, and it becomes an empty tradition. There's no feeling or connection except the form, and it continues only because it's the way it's always been done. It's important to ask why a practice or ritual is done, why it's tradition, and then go further and learn how it came to be." So that's sort of the base of everything I'm going to be talking about is understanding what these ceremonies are, why they're done, and what your reasons are for wanting to do them. So The first thing is the protocols. And so this is when someone is just starting out on their cultural or healing or spiritual journey. The easiest thing to do is to Google teachings. Anyone can make a website, can write anything on it that they want, and claim it to be truth. Anyone can do that. So if you're wondering which Google link to follow or which website is authentic, I would have to say it's impossible to know. Okay, so please don't Google search teachings. um, Talk to people, attend gatherings, ask questions. Find out who the spiritual caregivers are in your area. Get in touch with these people, meet them, sit with them, see if they are a good fit for you. And if not, that's okay. There's other people. It might take some time for you to find the right person or people who you want to learn from and work with. So don't give up. It's like finding a good doctor or a good therapist or a good dentist. um, so the first protocol that I'm going to share is about alcohol and drugs. And they don't have a place at our ceremonies or our other cultural events. Um, Creator Creator gave us medicines to use, um, and they come from plants, but they're intended to be used in a certain way, and to heal and to help us. Alcohol was created by humans using the plants in not such a good way. So, um, and this was done to escape reality, basically. So, um, they found out that they could alter their perception of things by doing this to plants, and so that's how it became. And throughout history, if you look at European history, they went through some pretty dark times, and so yeah, they created something that helped them to get through those times by altering their reality. Thing is that they brought this with them when they came to this continent. um we don't have any record of any kind, oral or pictograph or anything like that, that talks about alcohol. um so the only record is when they first came and they brought it with them. And so what that did was it allowed our indigenous people to be taken advantage of in so many different ways. And then drugs came later, but they still had the same effects. So spirit helpers, and those are who we pray to. Those are the spirits that help us to communicate with spirit world. We have spirit helpers around us all the time. um, they don't like drugs and alcohol. So when you're intoxicated, your spirit helper doesn't recognize you because you look different. You're different. And so they kind of step away from you. They won't leave you, but they keep themselves at a distance from you, because they don't like that. They don't like that feeling or that what it does to you. But the longer a person stays intoxicated, the longer the spirit stays at a distance, and the more likely that the spirit might get lost. And so the person becomes just a shell of their former self. And then eventually, not long after that, they usually are consumed by their addictions and we lose them. And then what happens then is the spirit will wander and continue to look for that body, that person. Um, and that spirit won't cross over the river to the spirit world. They get kind of stuck here looking constantly, always, forever looking for that body that they stepped away from. But that body no longer exists because the shell has expired. Um, So some ceremony conductors will require or ask of you, um, that you be free of alcohol and drugs for at least 4 days before coming, either coming to visit them even, or before going into the ceremony. But sometimes this isn't possible. You know, some people are so addicted to intoxicants that it becomes a necessary part of their daily life. Um, and so without their daily dose, their hit, their drink, they can get very sick and even die. And so sometimes exceptions have to be made, if we're going to help these people. So, I mean, they're the ones that truly need the guidance and the ceremonies, you know. But if the spiritual caregivers keep turning people away, for being intoxicated, then we're not really helping them, you know. Um, so if you have issues with addictions, be upfront about it. Don't try and hide it or say you're okay or you don't have. Bring that up first thing, because then you'll know if you can work with that person or not. Um, because they might ask you, well, you come to me when you're clean and sober, but if you can't do that, then what do, right? Um, so don't give up. Like I said, there are other people. So find someone who is willing to work with you no matter what state you're in. Um, and this goes for maybe not yourself, but if you know someone who is struggling with addictions, um, they might say, like, a lot of times they say, I well, I tried. They wouldn't see me because I was drunk. Well, you can't give up. Can't give up. Keep looking. There's somebody who will work with you. My husband and I, um, we both have Inipi Lodge. We both have Sweat Lodge that we carry, as well as other ceremonies. And if that's the case, we'll work with you because we know that you're the ones who need the help. That's what we're here for. So we won't turn anyone away, no matter what's going on. We'll help you in whatever way we can. But sometimes people don't know how to work with people, with addictions issues, or don't know how to work with someone who is intoxicated, or maybe themselves haven't fully dealt with their own addictions issues. And so while they're trying to help somebody with addictions issues, they themselves still need help, and so it just doesn't work, right? um some people just believe that the spirit helpers won't come around if there's an intoxicated person, but we've done ceremony and we know that that's not true. The spirit helpers still, they still come because they know that that person needs help. So those are our spirit helpers that we're calling in. So we explain to them, this person has this addiction and they need help, and so the spirit helpers will help them no matter what state they're in. um, so if you're taking medicinal cannabis, um so medicinal cannabis is kind of a new area for spiritual caregivers, because before, this was a drug that altered your state. And so it fell into the category of drugs. um but now it's used medicinally. So I guess it's the same, it would be the same thing, really. Just let that person know, like, when you're going to them, just let them know that I take medicinal cannabis, and this is why, and tell them the reasons why, whether it be for glaucoma or whatever. um and then see if they're willing to work with you, and if not, then you'll find somebody else who is willing. um so it's kind of difficult to, for me, I guess, to understand why someone wouldn't want to work with someone with addiction issues. Um, and my husband and I discussed this to great length, with our between ourselves and also with other spiritual caregivers. And so we've we've come to somewhat of a conclusion that there are some people who weren't actually called upon to do this work. And so basically they learn from Google or they take from wherever they can and they use it as though they were taught legitimately. Unfortunately, but this can be very dangerous, because when we go into ceremony, because we've been called upon to do this work, we're called upon by the spirit helpers to come forward and do this work. And not everyone is, and that's okay. Not everyone is supposed to be. Um, but the but there are some people who just really want to be able to do that, and um, they want it so badly that they'll just go and do it, without actually having been trained, having, you know, a mentor, someone that taught them the proper ways to open doorways and close doorways and call them in and send them home and, you know, all those kind of things. Um, and so, like I said, this could be very dangerous. So when, for example, someone is asking, you know, they have an illness and they're asking for medicine, and I feel very strongly about this, um, because it's the way I was taught. Somebody's looking for, what can I take? I have this illness, and what can I take? And so some people will just say, oh, I heard that this is good for that, you should take this. Well, for us, and I say us, my husband and I, when somebody comes to us and asks for, um you know, they bring us their tobacco and they ask for help and they say, I have this sickness, we take them into ceremony, and the spirit helpers are able to see inside that person. It's like an x-ray. They're able to look inside that person and see everything that's wrong inside. And so the spirit helpers are the ones that tell us which medicines they can and can't use depending on what conditions they have. So when somebody says, oh, you know, I heard this is good for that, or I know this is good for that, you should make some tea out of it, I cringe, because you never know there may be some underlying health conditions that that person doesn't even know they have. And if you're giving them some kind of medicine, I call them generic prescriptions. If you're giving them some kind of generic prescription that you heard worked for somebody else, or you know it worked for you, so here, take it too, you might be actually hurting that person rather than helping them. So, and you know, some of our medicines, and people say, well, just, you know, pray for that medicine and tell it what you want it to do and how you want it to help you. And again, there too, I say, I'm not telling that medicine what to do. Who am I to tell that medicine what to do? We're the insignificant ones here on this planet. That medicine is far more, you know, advanced and far more spiritual and far more connected than I am. So I'm not going to tell it what to do. The spirit helpers tell me how to use that medicine to help that person. So we don't, you know, just say you should take this or you should take that. We take it into ceremony every time. Um, so the protocols that one needs to know when seeking guidance, or help from a spiritual caregiver, are fairly basic, um, and pretty much the same across the board. There are little differences here and there, um, but it's a good idea to ask. So if you decided, you know, you when you ask around, when you talk to people, you'll hear the same names coming up, you know, sort of over and over again. You'll say, okay, I'm gonna take these names down and I'm gonna try, you know, meet these people. And so that's when you'll meet these people, and you get to know them and you get to know whether they're a good fit for you. Um, but so when you know that, and you know you're going to go and see them, it's a good idea to ask them, phone them ahead of time and ask them, what should I bring? Do I need to bring anything? Um, is there something like I want to ask you a question, and you have to be very clear and very specific about why you're coming. And so if all you're going to do is you just want to go there and meet them and have a conversation and find out how they are and if you guys fit, let them know that, so that they know you're only just coming to visit and to talk and to get to know each other. If you're going there specifically with a question, or you have an issue of some kind and you want them to help you, you have to be very clear about that too. So tell them why you're coming, and then they'll tell you if you need to bring anything with you. Um, it's important to be respectful and mindful of your words and actions when sitting with this person. Dress appropriately, so meaning respectfully. And this is, I mean, across the board, men, women, non-binary, transgender, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you dress how you're comfortable dressing, as long as it's respectful. um, I always say, think about it as if you're going to your grandparents' house, and how, like, you don't want them to see you, cleavage all spilling out and everything like that. So as if you're going to your grandparents' house, that's how you would sort of act and be respectful and dress. Um, yeah, so some of the things that you might need to take, just to prepare yourself in case you're not able to talk to them beforehand. Um, so we'll go over kind of a list of just basic things that you could have on hand in case they ask. So tobacco, first and foremost, tobacco. So it doesn't have to be a carton of cigarettes. It doesn't have to be a full pouch or a can of tobacco. But the person you're going to see might ask specifically for, just bring me a pack of cigarettes, or just, something like that. So that's why you ask them first, and then you know what kind of cigarettes they smoke and that kind of thing. So you take what they ask, but if you can't speak to them, usually a pouch, just a small pouch of tobacco. And it doesn't have to be Players Light, expensive tobacco. It can be the cheapest one there. It doesn't matter. It's the tobacco. Um it's not the brand that matters. Um Someone, they might ask you to bring prayer ties rather than a pouch of tobacco. So you'll make prayer ties, and I'll go over what that is. Um so most spiritual caregivers will accept commercial tobacco, and that's that meaning the name brand tobaccos, and even the non-name brand. I don't even remember what they are now. I quit smoking 15 years ago, so I don't remember the names of cigarettes. Like, but the oh, let's see. And now I'm going back to Ontario. I was thinking Putters, and we had Putters Light. It was the cheap res version of Players Light. I forget what the Demorier one was, but yeah, we had, like, even if it's the cheap version, it's fine. Because most spiritual caregivers won't use that tobacco in their pipe. So you'll hand them this tobacco expecting them to smoke it in their pipe, and they'll put it aside. And then they'll fill their pipe with their own mix. And so this is because, like, for me, I have a bad relationship with tobacco. Um, I was a heavy smoker, and then I quit about 15 years ago. But 4 years ago, I have had a tumor in my lung, carcinogenic, so caused by smoking. So I have a bad relationship with tobacco, and I don't want to have anything to do with commercial tobacco. So I won't smoke that tobacco in my pipe. Some do. It's personal choice. I mean, maybe they're smokers and they like it, right? I don't like the taste or the smell or anything, so I won't put it in my pipe. So what I do is I'll put that aside. I'll accept it, but I'll put it aside, and I'll use my own mix. I make like a knick, um, red willow bar. Oh, I have about 8 different things that I put in, mint, and, like, it smells lovely, and it tastes nice, and um, yeah, I won't use it, but I will use it later on. I'll use it in tobacco ties, or I'll use it in water offerings or food offerings, or to put out, on the land. I'll use it then. So if they put it aside, don't take offense to that. They will use it eventually. So the commercial tobacco that we use today has over 4,000 chemicals, including 43 known cancer causing or carcinogenic chemicals. So that's why a lot of people choose not to use it. Some of these are nicotine, which we know it's highly addictive. And when we take a drag of a cigarette, it takes 6 seconds or less than 6 seconds for the nicotine to envelop the brain. It just goes all over the place inside your brain. It's 6 seconds, so that's pretty quick, and then it's like boom, you're addicted. um, Formaldehyde, which is a chemical used to slow the decomposition of dead bodies. Why they put it in cigarettes, I don't know. There must be a reason, but I don't want that in my in my body. Polonium, which is a cancer-causing radioactive material. Cyanide, it's a deadly poison. And cadmium, and cadmium is an acid used in batteries. Why do they put these in cigarettes? I don't know, but those are only a few. There's 43 of these known cancer causing chemicals. um so anyway, so when you're asking the spiritual caregiver for help or guidance or healing, you'll hold that tobacco in your hands, um and communicate very clearly what it is that you're asking of them. It's almost like, be careful what you're asking for, because you might just get it. So you have to be very clear about what it is. And there might be times when you have this tobacco and you're asking them to do something for you or something to help somebody, and they might not accept it. And this is only because not all spiritual caregivers can do all the ceremonies. So they might not carry, the ceremony that they believe you need in order to help you. So if they don't, they're not gonna accept that because they can't do it. So accepting that tobacco from you, so that's why you state what you want first. Because if you just came up to me and went to try and hand me a pouch of tobacco, I wouldn't I'd be like, what's this for? I wouldn't take it because I'm saying I'm going to be able to do whatever you want me to do. And so we can't all do all the ceremonies. Some of us only carry one, others carry many. And so you won't know until you ask. And then so if they say I can't accept that, they'll explain to you why, or they should, um, and point you in the right direction. So where then can you go to get the help that you need? Um, and so it's not anything personal. If they don't accept, it just means that they can't do it. It's not. It should never be misinterpreted as being personal. So another thing you might need to take is cloth. And so this is cotton cloth, and they would be usually in very specific colors because the the person that you're going to see has spirit helpers, and they like to have certain colors of cloth, and so it depends on their spirit helpers. um some of them will ask for 1 meter of each color, whatever those colors are. Some of them only require half a meter. So if you talk to them beforehand, you'll know how much to bring and what colors. But if you're going to see someone without speaking to them first, and you want to be prepared and have some cloth just in case they ask for it, um, your safe bet is to take 1 meter of blue and 1 meter of white, because these are healing colors, and so you can't really go wrong with blue and white. And so they'll accept those. most of them will accept those unless they're very specific and very strict. But blue and white, you're safe with those. And so sometimes they'll ask, instead of bringing cloth and tobacco, they'll ask you to bring prayer ties. And so that's the cloth and the tobacco together. And so what you'll do is make a like a bowl shape like this in your hand, and then you put that cloth on top and you kind of push it in to make like a little bowl. And so this is just the very corner of the cloth, like here. So this is your half meter or your meter of cloth, and it's long. And so you just use the very corner like this. And so you put it like this and you push it in, and then you take that tobacco um, that you're going to use and you put it in there. And so while you're doing that, you're praying at the same time. So you're going to take that tobacco and you're going to pray with it, whatever it is, whatever question it is that you have, whatever help that you're looking for. You hold that tobacco and you pray, and then you put it in that tie. And then so when you've done that for each color, if you know which colors to bring, if you've spoken to them beforehand, you'll do that for each color. And then so you just rip a little piece off the bottom of that cloth and you tie it with that. So it's gonna look like a little balloon, sort of. And that's your prayer tie. Um, and so you'll take them that, and that's what you'll give to them, rather than separately cloth and tobacco. You could take a gift. The spiritual caregiver is taking the time to help you, um, time that they don't get quote unquote paid for. So a gift shows your appreciation, your gratitude for what they're going to do for you. And the gift doesn't have to be anything extravagant or very expensive, but you do have to take into consideration how much value what they are doing for you means to you. So um, I know of a spiritual caregiver one time who they had somebody come to them because they were diagnosed with cancer. And so this caregiver went, took them into to ceremony, and their spirit helpers actually went in and did doctoring and healing um, for that person. And then they found out later that their cancer had mysteriously, miraculously disappeared. It was gone. There was nothing. Doctors were amazed. They couldn't figure it out. Um, and so that person was so grateful that they went and bought that spiritual caregiver a brand new vehicle. It was a minivan. I was there when they delivered it. And I mean, that was how much, and probably more, but that's how much what that person did for them meant to them. That was their life. This is the least I can do, is buy you this brand new vehicle. I mean, we can't all do that, obviously. Um, but it should be something that means a lot to you. It could be, maybe an art piece that you have, or even an art piece that you did yourself, a painting, or something that you put a lot of yourself into, your thought, your heart, your time. It could be something like that. It could be something sort of like an heirloom, something that was handed down, and what they did for you meant so much that you're willing to give this up for them. So it's a gift, and it shows your appreciation and how much that meant to you. So, some people will go to the dollar store and get a thing of tea towels. And they give this to the person as a gift. Maybe they could have afforded a lot more than that, but they thought, yeah, this is good enough. Wait, is that what that meant to you? Is that what that healing, or that those prayers, or whatever it is that they did for you, is that what it's worth for you? Is that you, because you said, it's good enough, you know? So you have to think about that. And it's got to come from the heart, and something that means. And if that's on the other side of that, If that's what you can afford, then that's taking a lot. That's taking, even that couple of dollars that it costs is taking a lot out of, your food money and your money for your bills and money for your children. And so still that means a lot. You're giving, even if it's only a couple dollars, if that's what you can afford, that's still giving a lot. And it's showing that um I don't have much, but this is what I can give you, right? And so it comes from the heart. So either end of the spectrum here, we're giving new vehicles or we're giving tea towels. It's where it's coming from. So food. So some ceremonies, like a naming ceremony, for example, requires a food offering to be made to the spirit helpers. So in this case, you would have already spoken to the spiritual caregiver, and they would have told you everything that you need to bring for the ceremony and the feast afterwards. In the case of a naming ceremony, you're you need to bring an eagle feather. Well, for our naming ceremonies, you need to bring an eagle feather or an eagle plume. And so if you don't have these things, you need to let them know that you don't have these things, or you don't know where to get these things. Um, and so they can provide it for you, but just keep in mind that they're giving something to the ceremony that you should be providing. And so recognition of this, in the form of a gift maybe, would be very respectful and appreciated. Um, an honorarium. So this is a really touchy subject. Honorarium. So this is money, monetary. So the belief that spiritual caregivers should be conducting ceremonies out of the goodness of their hearts and not expect any money from those asking for the ceremony, that's a bit selfish, for me to go somewhere and expect them to come to me or come to my community and then not give them any money to come. Um, I don't know, I kind of find that a bit selfish. So if these people are called upon to do this work, they endured many sacrifices throughout their lives. And so this isn't something that somebody just picks up and comes and does. This is a lifetime of living this life and learning and having guidance and doing these ceremonies. And so you have to think about that when you're inviting people to your community or to your organization to come and do some kind of ceremony, or if you're going to them. But most spiritual caregivers won't ask for money. They won't. Some do. Um, but you have to take into consideration what you're asking of them, whether they have to travel. Do they have a helper or helpers who will be coming with them? Um, so that if they have to travel, then they'll need gas and accommodations and food. And if they have helpers, these people will also need to be compensated. So these are things to think about. And sometimes, like myself and my husband, we have full-time jobs. And so if someone asks us to come and do, a ceremony, we have to take time off work. And so, you have to think about that too. Um, and so, compensating with money, we call it an honorarium. It's not a bad thing. But, the argument does come up that, well, in the olden days, we didn't have money. Oh, well, no, we didn't have money, but when someone was called upon to do this work, they were gifted very generously. Their every need was taken care of. They were given a brand new teepee to stay in, that was freshly made for them. Um, it was furnished with the finest furs and hides, and they would be fed the best meat and berries. The men would gift horses. The women would gift their finest quill work and moccasins, and so we took very good care of these people. So in the modern days, we have to remember these things, and treat our spiritual people with the same respect. that we did back then. Um, we don't have horses and teepees to give away, or maybe we do. That would be lovely, but we can compensate appropriately, and that's okay. Giving money is fine. Um, it's not bad. It's not evil. It's not dirty. It's nothing like that. It's just making sure that those people are taken care of. But some spiritual caregivers will refuse, and these are mostly the older ones, our older elders and caregivers. They'll refuse the money because they still think that they're getting paid to do this, and they don't want to get paid. They'll accept your gifts, but they don't want to get paid, so they'll refuse your money. But sometimes we feel very strongly about making sure that they're taken care of, and we want to give them some money. So the easiest way to do this is to either make or purchase a blanket or a quilt and safety pin that money to the quilt and then give them the quilt. So then they're not accepting the money, they're accepting the quilt. And it's kind of a sneaky way of giving those elders money for what they've done. Um, so my husband always says, when people complain about giving monetary or honorariums, spiritual caregivers can't eat tobacco and their vehicles don't run on hay. So it's kind of bringing it up to date, sort of like things evolve. And one of our other health support workers and knowledge keepers, Sharon, she did a teaching there, I think it was a few days ago, about evolving traditions. And so this is just one of those things. Like, it evolves, and we have to keep up with the times, and um, things change, right? We can't say, well, in the olden days it wasn't. That comes up a lot of times when we're going to smoke our pipe, or if somebody's using a lighter to light their pipe, and they say, well, we didn't have a lighter way back then. And well, if there were lighters, they would probably use them because they're very convenient. So, and actually, some useless knowledge here: the lighter was invented before matches. That's a fact. That's historical fact. You can look it up. The lighter was invented before, actually, like, a pack of matches was invented. So there you go. Um, so moon time. So we move on. You can still go and visit with a spiritual caregiver if you're on your moon time. They might they might ask you to call ahead, or it might be just good, for yourself, good protocol, just to call ahead and let them know. I'm supposed to come and see you this weekend, but I'm going to be on my moon time. I'm just letting you know, and that's okay. That's fine. Um, it's just so that they can prepare their home for your visit, um, so that they don't have any spiritual items around, or something like that. So um, when you're on your moon time, you're in a week long cleansing ceremony, and so your energy is very powerful, and so that they'll just make sure that there's nothing, no medicines or anything around, um, that you can drain the energy out of, because you're so powerful at that time. And so letting them know, or having them ask you, can you let me know if you're on your time? It's not a means of any disrespect or shame or embarrassment or anything like that. It's just so they can prepare. Um, so spirit helpers, the reason why women on their moon time are asked to stay away from the ceremonies, to not attend ceremonies, is because spirit helpers won't come near a woman on her moon time. And this is because this is a very private time for that woman. Uh, and so you're in ceremony. And so they give you that privacy. And they just won't come. They know you're on your time, and they'll give you that privacy. So they won't come into the ceremony. And so when people are having a ceremony, they're having a ceremony for specific reasons, like for healing or for prayers or whatever it is. So they need those spirit helpers to come in. They need them to. So if you're in there and you're on your time, they won't, because you are on your time and they want to give you that privacy. So it's not, again, it's not any disrespect or saying, that you're dirty or you can't be here. It's not anything like that. It's the fact that you are in ceremony, um and that's supposed to be a private time for you, and it used to be. um Today we can't really do that. In the olden days, again, I say, when a woman began her moon time, she would, gather a few things and move into a moon lodge. So she would leave her teepee and move into a different teepee where there would be other women on their time as well. Um, and so this is a time of solace and, um, reconnection and regeneration of that female energy and cleansing of self. And so this is a very personal ceremony that we go through, 13 times a year. And who guides us through that is Grandmother Moon. She regulates the tides, and she also tells us, our bodies, when it's time to go through that ceremony. And it's 13 times a year. And it wasn't until Europeans came to the continent that they brought with them the paternal beliefs, of female dirtiness and shame. So we that wasn't a shameful thing. That was a celebration of life and our ability to bring life forward to this world. Um, but today, women have learned to treat their moon time as a burden, an inconvenience, a painful and shameful nuisance. But it's important to teach our young girls, that this is a time to celebrate being a woman, um, and a time to heal and connect with Mother Earth. And we do this, um, in a berry fast. So we take our young girls, when they start their moon time, they'll fast from eating any kind of berries. Berries are, um, women's medicine, and so they refrain. And that also teaches them, um, perseverance and strength and humility, and all these teachings that come along with that ceremony. um, so then, we'll talk about children at ceremonies. I need a drink. Getting dry. So you should ask the spiritual caregiver if it's okay to bring your child or your children to the ceremony. So, depending on what type of ceremony or what the issues are that are being addressed, they may advise you to leave them at home or leave them with a sitter. And this is not any form of disrespect. Again, this is, rather, for their safety, for the safety of the children. Because sometimes some ceremonies can get very active, very loud, and sometimes scary, downright scary, even for adults. So, if you're told it's okay to bring your children, though, teach them the protocols, lead by example. If you don't know what's going to take place in the ceremony, ask the spiritual caregiver what to expect so that you can share this with your child or with your children. And if there'll be other people at the ceremony, teach your child or children to be respectful. Um, Children running around, and I know children do that, and they're noisy and they like to play and scream, and that's fine. That's what kids do. But they might be disruptive of people concentrating on their prayers or what it is that they're asking for. And so just to share those things with them and let them know that people are praying here, and we have to be respectful, and so you lead by example. And um And yeah, so it's just being mindful of your children and what they're doing. So yeah, it but ask first if you can bring them, because you don't want to bring them and then have them get scared of something there. I mean, there's not anything that they should be afraid of, but they're kids. And if some of our ceremonies require being in total darkness, and so that might be scary for them. And then they might hear rattles and voices and things going on, so it can get very scary. um so call ahead, ask what's going to happen. Should I bring my kids, should I not? So that those are just basic protocols, for get coming to finding an elder or a spiritual caregiver. um how do you approach them? Where do you find them? That sort of thing. So that's protocols. And there'll be other protocols as I go along, but that's just of approaching an elder or a spiritual caregiver. um so I saw a question: where can you purchase an eagle feather? um we don't usually buy our eagle feathers. These are ceremonial spiritual objects. We try not to purchase them. um we are on a list with the Ministry of Natural Resources, and this is a huge list. They got many people on this list. If they come across an eagle stuck in a fence, maybe got hit by a car, it's brought into MNR. They measure the feathers, they take all their notes and everything, and then the next person on the list who is asking for feathers or a whole eagle, um, they'll give them a call. They'll say, we have an eagle. And then that's how you get an eagle these days. um, and so how you would get an eagle feather, I mean, you can, if you know where there's a nest, you can walk around under the tree and see if maybe some have fallen. And then in that case, if you see one or some that have fallen there, you take your tobacco and um, just pray to that eagle, whether it's alive or if it's dead. You pray to the eagle, or you're praying to the spirit of the eagle and saying, I'm going to pick up these feathers that you dropped. I'm going to use them for this purpose. And then you place that tobacco down as an offering, and then you can pick up those feathers. Or, if you need some feathers, for example, for a naming ceremony. So for a boy, we use like a feather. Usually, it's usually just a small wing feather. For a girl, we'll use the plume, the fluffy ones. And so when they're getting their name, we tie that feather to their hair. And then on their feet, they have shells. We put shells on their feet, any kind of shell. Um, and so what that represents is from the bottom of the oceans to Creator. So that shell is the bottom of the ocean, and that plume represents the eagle that flies up to Creator. This is a sacred person, and so we want you to be able to recognize them, and this is why we're asking for their name. What's their name? Um, if you find an eagle, yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I guess it's a bit different. We found an eagle, and because I know the ceremony. Um, it takes 4 days to take an eagle apart and to take the feathers out. There's a specific way in which you do it. So we picked it up, we wrapped it. We always carry cloth with us in our vehicles because you never know when you're going to need cloth. Red cloth. We always have red cloth. And so we had it wrapped. We wrapped it up. We put it in our trunk. We brought it home. I did the ceremony, and we used the feathers. We're still using those feathers actually. Um, But if you don't, I mean, if you don't know what to do with it, the best thing is definitely, well, you're supposed to report them to MNR, the Ministry of Natural Resources. That's what you're supposed to do, because they like to track um, where these eagles have been, where they came from. Like maybe they came from way over here and they migrated way over here. They want to know that. Um, they want to know how they died. If it's known, if it looks like they were maybe hit by a car, MNR will want to know that. It's just for statistics, keeping records, and so that they can better um, manage their eagle population, or keep them safe. So that you're supposed to you're supposed to call MNR and let them know, because they'll want to measure the tail feathers. They will take the very center tail feather, and they keep that on file. But if you do that, they might take it. Like, keep it and then give it to the next person on the list. I don't know how they do that. Or if you say, well, I found it, shouldn't I be able to keep it? I don't know. I don't, you'll have to ask MNR. Um, but yeah, I think if you don't know what to do with it, probably a good idea would be to talk to an elder or spiritual caregiver, somebody that might be familiar with the protocols of that and what you should do with it. But definitely, I think if you find one on the side of the road or in a fence or something like that, um, put an offering down, just to say, I'm sorry you died this way. I'm gonna give an offering to your spirit. Thank you for being on this earth. Just kind of sending them off in a good way, rather than just being run over and nobody cares, kind of thing, or stuck in a fence and it's just a bird sort of way of thinking. Um, this way, it's kind of nice to do that for those spirits, and they'll remember that, and they'll help you probably later on down the road in some way. So yeah, um, if you need eagle feathers, yeah, you'll either have to go on the list for MNR, or you'll have to talk to somebody, spiritual caregiver, an elder in your community, and they'll know how to find you what you need. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the Inipi ceremony, and Inipi is a Dakota word, and so this is we also call this a purification lodge or a sweat lodge. Yeah.
Did you want to take a quick break? It's 2 o'clock right now. I don't know if
Um,
you want to
I'll
grab a
just get
glass.
through this one first, and then we'll
Okay.
take a break.
All
Yeah.
right. Sounds good.
So we'll get through this and we'll take a quick 10-minute break. If anybody needs to use the washroom or anything. So for myself, I say I'm Dakota Lakota because my I always get these mixed up too. My grandpa was a Dakota, and my no. Every time I think about it, I think I switch it. Yeah, my grandpa was Dakota, my grandmother was Lakota, and see, I'm second guessing myself. Maybe it's the other way around. Anyway, they pretty much raised me. My mom worked a lot, single parent, so she was always at work, and so I was always with them. And they each spoke their own dialect. And so I'm not fluent in the language whatsoever, but when I do try to speak or write in the language, I end up mixing them. So some words will be Dakota and some words will be Lakota. It's just it's a habit that I can't seem to break it. I'm trying to say everything in both, though, in this. So the Dakota Lakota people call this ceremony Inipi. So Inipi meaning E is the source of life. So E representing Eon. Eon was basically creator. Um, the Ni, Ni is he or she is alive. And so putting them together is Ini. So the source of life of him or her, and the P is group. So inipi is the sweat lodge ceremony. Um, so if you're going to be attending an inipi ceremony for the first time, you might feel maybe excited, a little bit scared. But the basic protocols for attending an inipi ceremony are pretty relatively the same for most lodges. But you should ask questions and find out for sure before attending. No one's gonna shame you or be angry if you show up unprepared for the first one. Um, you don't know what you don't know, and that's fine. But asking questions beforehand might help you to feel more comfortable. If you have a medical condition, you should speak to your doctor first. Let them know what a sweat lodge is, and do you think that's a good idea? If you're even not sure what a sweat lodge is, you can make a comparison to a sauna. Okay, so like the sauna that you would find at a hotel, for example, you can um you can compare it sort of to that. It's like a sauna. We go in, for probably 4 rounds. Each round might be anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour, and then see what they say, and also talk to the person who's going to be conducting the lodge keeper. Because there's some medical conditions where it might not be such a good idea to go in, such as heart conditions, or if you wear a pacemaker. Also, interestingly enough, we just learned this not long ago. Um, because it's pitch black inside there, once they close the door, you can't see anything except for maybe the glow of the stones. But what can happen apparently is if you're epileptic, because you're in the dark, your eyes are trying to focus and there's nothing to focus on. And then when they start singing and drumming, it gets really loud, and it's almost like a vibration in your eyes and in your brain, and it can actually cause epileptic seizures. So if you have epilepsy that's maybe not under control, or maybe you don't even know you have it, that's a possibility. So it's good, like, I mean, if you know that that's something, a condition that you have, it's good to, maybe you can wear earplugs, and just keep your eyes closed instead of trying to keep them open and focus on something. Make sure you keep them closed. Wear earplugs is what we were told, how you kind of get around that, and keep people from becoming sick in there. So it's a good idea to speak to the person conducting the ceremony and let them know that you have these. Sometimes accommodations can be made where they might run a gentle ceremony where not as many stones are used and it doesn't get as hot. So if you have heart condition or pacemaker, you're still able to go in. In the case of maybe epilepsy, or maybe you have a fear of the dark, or you're claustrophobic. I've been in a lodge where they left the door open just a little bit, just enough to let a little bit of light in, so that alleviates that fear of being in a closed space. Um, Maybe not completely, but a little bit. It lets you know that there is a way out. um, if you have claustrophobia, you know what I'm talking about. I used to be claustrophobic, and I worked through that. And yeah, I can see how that would help, just to know that you're not trapped in there. There is a door, and it's open a little bit. So that's something that some people might accommodate you in that as well. Um, if you haven't asked what you should bring, the following list will be it'll be okay for your first time, but you should, after the first time, you should be comfortable in asking what you should bring. So for women, a long skirt, a t-shirt, and expect them to get dirty or muddy and sweaty. For men, shorts and undershirt. A lot of men go in bare chested, but some conductors might ask that men wear an undershirt. And so, and I spoke to my son about this. I want to be inclusive, and but it keeps changing, and I can't keep up with it. And I feel like I'm sort of behind actually. My son is two spirit. And so I asked him about this, and he said, this is how he said to word this. So, non binary or transgender, whatever you are comfortable wearing, shorts, t shirt, undershirt, skirt, wrap, etc. So it's up to you, as long as it's respectful. As long as you're coming in there, not just wearing a slinky bra or something like that. You're being respectful. It's like sitting in the lodge with your grandparents. They don't want to see all that, so be respectful. When it comes to what you'll wear into the lodge, some conductors can be fairly strict, and may ask that you wear certain clothing. Participating in this ceremony, though, is a personal choice. So if you don't agree with what the conductor is asking you to wear, um, you can always, find another sweat lodge to go to, somewhere where that's more inclusive of all preferences. And so, when my husband and I conduct our lodges, I don't care what you wear, as long as it's respectful, um, as long as you're comfortable. We're not there for a fashion show, basically, is what we always say. It's not a fashion show. Just be comfortable, be respectful. And so, but having said that, we need to remember why we're going into the ceremony. So we're going in there for purification, for healing, for prayers, for teachings, whatever it is. So what we wear inside really shouldn't have any impact on our reasons for attending and participating. So, but I suggest that you talk to the conductor first, about your personal preferences, and find out if they're willing to allow you to wear what you're comfortable wearing. So you'll also need to bring some water to drink, bottled water or a reusable bottle. Reusable picnic style utensils. So this is an up and coming trend, and it's about time we're all starting to use reusable um, bowls and plates and cups, like picnic style. Um, Sometimes paper plates and plastic cutlery are provided by someone. Someone will bring that. But if you have, your own things that you bring and you use them and then you take them home and you wash them, you're just, being more environmentally friendly and reducing waste. Um, Snacks. So if you're diabetic, for example, you should have something small to eat before going into the lodge. And this will just sort of keep your blood sugars up a little bit so you don't crash, because that all that heat and that sweating um, can make you crash. So you want to make sure that you have a snack, not something big, because then you'll just get an upset stomach, but a snack, something small. My husband likes these fiber ones. They're small, but they're good. They're tasty. Um, and it's just enough for him to be okay throughout the ceremony. A change of undergarments, so you don't have to go home wearing wet panties. It's yeah, so you come out of there, you're soaking wet. You change out of your skirt or your shorts and your shirt, and you put on your dry clothes, but your undergarments are still soaking wet. So it's a good idea to bring dry ones. There's nothing like sitting in the car all the way home in squidgy panties. So you wanna change. Um, Two towels, at least two towels. one to take into the lodge with you, and the other for when you come out. You'll have a nice dry towel. Some kind of food dish for the feast after the ceremony. And this is a good idea when it's a good idea to speak to someone before going, so you can ask what you should bring and how many people might be there, so that you know how much to bring. Tobacco for offerings, and you may be asked to bring berries sometimes as an offering. So that's a basic list, and that's pretty much the same across the board. All the stuff you would need to have a sweat, and then they might ask you to bring some extra stuff, and that would be personal to every conductor's lodge. So it's a good idea to talk to somebody at least before going to the first one. And when you arrive at the ceremony site, you might be asked to help in preparing the lodge, which can include things like building of the lodge. It might not even be up, and you have to help actually build it. So when they're building it, the trees will come across each other, and so they need to be tied. This is usually done by the women. Um, but I mean, if there's no women around, obviously the men will do it. But you might be asked to tie some ties. Um, Gathering or spreading out of cedar. So some people put cedar along the bottom of their lodge. Spreading out the blankets that are going to go down. Cutting some wood. Um, Fetching some water, like a pail of water. Preparing medicines, cooking, helping with the feast. You could be asked to do any number of things. But sometimes, or usually, the conductor will have helpers who will have all of this or most of this already done. Um, but it would be very respectful and appreciated if you asked if there's anything you could do to help. And if this is already all taken care of, then you can sit and visit with others who are sitting around, but respectfully, because preparing the lodge is part of the ceremony, and lighting that fire, and it's all part of the ceremony. So sit respectfully. Um, no foul language, talking loudly, gossiping, that sort of thing. Because the ceremony has started already, even though you haven't gone in, it's already started. Um, One very important protocol about sweat lodge is never put anything into the fire other than medicines or offerings. No cigarette butts and no garbage of any kind. And also, it would be very disrespectful to leave your butts on the ground if you're a smoker. So usually there's a coffee can. If not, kind of take the end off the burning end and put the butt in your pocket, and then you take it with you when you leave. This is just being respectful of the land. Um, some conductors might ask, if you're going to put offerings in the fire, that you do it in a certain way. So approaching it from a certain direction and then going all the way around, usually clockwise. So you'll say your prayer, you'll put the tobacco or medicine or whatever it is in, and then you come around clockwise, and then you leave, and then the next person will go. So they might ask you to do that, and it's just the way that they conduct their ceremony. So you want to be respectful of that, and to follow their direction. It's okay to ask questions in any ceremony that you go to. It's okay to ask questions, but it's also, you need to be mindful of what's going on at the time. For example, the conductor is holding their pipe and everyone's gone quiet. This would be a good time to follow suit and to not ask questions just yet. Like, just take your cues from everyone else. If everyone's quiet, then you just, respectfully just wait until, you might not know what's going on, but no one else is talking. So I'm just going to sit quietly too, and I'll figure it out just by, watching. Or, once people start talking again, so what just happened there? That's when we ask the questions. Um, so in that scenario, that conductor was probably starting to fill their pipe for the ceremony, and everyone's gone quiet. So that's you don't want to be asking questions or talking, while that's going on. Um, so when the stones have been heated in the fire and they're ready for the ceremony, the conductor will tell everyone where they're going to sit. Um, so the conductor will go into the lodge first and get themselves settled in their spot, and it's usually on the other side of the doorway. So they usually sit right at the back of the lodge, looking out the doorway. Um, and then they'll call for everyone else to come in. And they usually call for the women first because the women will sit to the left of the conductor. And so when you come in to the lodge, you come in clockwise. And so you'll have to be the first ones to come in and then stop at the door. Just before going back out the door, you'll stop there and then you'll sit. And then the men will come in and sit to the right of the conductor. If you identify as male, if I don't see, this is where I don't know how to put this. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. I'm just not sure how to say it. If you're male but you identify as female, let the conductor know. Or vice versa, if you're female but you identify as male, let them know. Because they might expect you to come in and sit on the female side, but you're more comfortable to sit on the male side, or vice versa. So if you just let them know, um, usually they'll accommodate that and be respectful of your choices. Sometimes, though, they might ask you to sit in a specific doorway. This isn't meant as any kind of disrespect or to shame you or anything like that. This is actually an honor to be asked to sit in a specific doorway. So their helpers might say, we need this two-spirit person or transgender or whatever the case may be. We need them to sit in these specific doorways, because then those helpers will come in through that specific doorway. So it's never you should never take that personally, or think that it's um a way to shame you or anything like that. It has nothing to do with that. It's about their spirit helpers and how they can best help everyone in the lodge. So when you enter the lodge, you'll go in on your hands and knees, just as the conductor did and just as everyone else will do. Everyone goes in on their hands and knees unless you have mobility issues, knee or joint problems, stuff like that. But mostly everyone will enter the lodge in a humble and respectful manner. And when everyone's in the lodge and settled, the conductor will then ask for the helper or firekeeper to start bringing in the stones. So during this time, there should be no talking other than the welcoming of the stones. And this is because the ceremony has begun. I mean, it's begun already outside, but sometimes you'll find people like to chit chat while the stones are being brought in, but you shouldn't. You should be concentrating on them coming in and welcoming them in. Um, so for a Dakota Lakota lodge, you might hear the conductor say something like "Wopira Tankashira" or "Wopila Tankashila." So that's the Dakota way and the Lakota way. Or Pidamaya Tankashira. So usually when I run my lodge, I say Pidamaya Tankashira. So thank you, Tankashira. Um, but when people hear that word, Tankashira or Tankashila, they associate that with grandfather, because it has been misinterpreted by non-Indigenous people as meaning grandfather. So when and in some lodges they actually say, welcome grandfather. um and so, but I can only speak to my lodge. So when we use the word tankashida or tankashila when welcoming the stones into the lodge, we aren't actually calling them grandfathers. The word, like I said, has been misinterpreted, although it can mean grandfather. It can. It can also mean really grandmother. So when you hear the interpretation, you'll see why. So I conducted a sweat lodge for a group of women one time. And as the stones were coming in, I was saying Piramia Takashira. And a couple of women in the lodge started to say quite loudly, and grandmothers, and they would say that every time a stone would come in. Every time I said Piramia Takashira. So then when the stones were all in and the door was closed, I explained to them what it meant. I had to explain to them. Um, so the word is basically condensed, a condensed form of two words, Tunka Oyate, which means stone nation. So Tunka is stone, or really it's like a sacred entity. And Oyate means nation. So that's broken down, or it's condensed from that. So Tun in Tun Kashila, Tun means from birth, or from the beginning of time. Ka, Tun Ka is the Ka is to old age or up to today. She is you are a relative. And La or Da is just an expression of love or endearment. So when you put them together, Tankashida or Tankashila, it means basically from the beginning of time until today, you are a relative and you're dear to me. So that's what you're saying when you hear Tankashida or Tankashila, it's not grandfather. It's you from the beginning of time. You were here, basically, you were here at the beginning of time and you're still here today. You're one of my relatives and you're dear to me, is what you're saying to that stone as it's coming in. Um, because in the Dakota creation story, creator was called Eon. And so Eon was just an energy, a powerful energy. And we don't know if Eon was male or if Eon was female. Maybe they were both, maybe they were neither. We don't know. Um, when Eon had no more blood to give to create life, Eon turned to a huge stone in the universe and then basically just crumbled. And all its pieces fell all over the earth, all over Makah's earth. And so these are the stones, the rocks, and the pebbles. So when these stones come into the lodge, we're using basically what's left of Eon to heal ourselves, to give ourselves new life. Um, and so there's usually 4 rounds for a sweat lodge ceremony. Sometimes there are only 2. Other times there may be just 1 long round. It depends on what the ceremony's for. What it might be a healing sweat, it might be just a purification sweat. So it depends. But usually there's 4 rounds. Um, So the doorway that you entered through will be closed. The firekeeper will put the tarps or blankets down close tightly to the ground, and there will be no light except for the stones. You might see the glow from the stones. You'll feel the heat coming off the stones as like a dry heat until that conductor starts and pours or splashes ladles of water, medicine water, on the stones, and then you'll feel the steam. And this can be very intense the first time you go into a sweat until you get used to it. But the best thing to do is to put your head down as close, into your lap as you can, and just let that steam go over the top of you like that. And you can put your blanket or your towel over your head if that helps. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, and you might feel like you can't breathe. You just need to relax. It's just steam. There's lots of oxygen in there. You're not suffocating. But it's the steam so close to your face that sort of makes you feel like that. So you just relax, try to take deep breaths, and you'll be okay. If for some reason you feel like you're not okay and that you need to get out, um, take a quick second to do a bit of an inventory on yourself, and is this in my head? Is this because of a bit of claustrophobia or a bit of fear maybe, or am I really in distress? So just take a second, quickly figure out, do I just need to calm down or do I really need to get out? Let the conductor know. Nobody's there to force you to stay in. If you have to get out, you have to get out. So the conductor will immediately ask for the door. They'll open the door and then you can get out. That's fine. You're not disturbing anybody. You're not wrecking the ceremony. You need to take care of you however you need to take care of you. Um, Songs will be sung on hand drum and or rattles. You might be handed a rattle to use, and that's usually if you're sitting in one of the doorways, they might hand you a rattle, and so you'll just keep time with the song with the rattle. Um, During the rounds, the conductor will give some teaching, sing some songs, and there usually will be a round or two, depending on how many people are there, for everyone to pray. And so you'll take turns all praying. But remember, when you're praying, you're speaking directly to the spirit helpers and to Creator. Some people will go in, will start to not necessarily pray, but like address the crowd, thank everyone for coming, start talking about their day or their week. It's sort of like a sharing circle. Um, this isn't the time for that. This is a time for saying what you need to say in a very direct and clear manner to the spirit helpers, to Creator, and then pidamea, wopida, miigwech, thank you, mitakuyas, and all my relations, whatever it is that you say to end it, so that the conductor knows you're done and the next person in line knows you're done. It's like, you know, get in there, do what you got to do, end it, because it's really hot inside there and some people might be suffering in the heat. And if you're, just addressing the crowd, sort of not really praying, but just sort of talking, you're just kind of taking up time. And we're there to pray specifically. So remember that. Um, at the end of each round, the conductor will have the door open, we'll call for the door. And so they'll open the door and the steam will come out and the fresh air will come in, and then, oh, I made it through the round. Um, and so there's usually four of those rounds. If you need to get out, if you need to use the washroom or anything like that, you can do that. Um, you'll leave basically the same way you came in. You just sort of keep going. If you're sitting over here, you come in this way, you come around, you sit in your spot. Now you have to go to the washroom. You just keep going around that circle, and then you'll come back in the same way you came in the first time, all the way around to your spot again. If you feel that you can't come back in, that's okay. Just let the firekeeper know, and they'll let the conductor know, and then they'll just go on without you, and that's fine. If you can't make it through the whole ceremony, that's okay. That's totally okay. That you did what you could. Um, After all the rounds are done and the pipe has been smoked and the berries offered or eaten, um, everyone will come out of the lodge and change their clothes. And at this time, people will have, or the helper will have been making a spirit dish from the feast food. And so once the spirit dish has been made, and offered to the fire, then everyone can feast. If there's any elderly present, and they eat first, and should be served by the younger people. And once they have their food, everyone can eat, and it's usually buffet style. And they usually like to not have any leftovers. So if you've had your meal, they might come around again with what's left, and it's, you might be full, but you'll take it anyway. Take it anyway, because it's a little bit disrespectful to say no, I don't want it. Just take it anyway. You can take it home with you. Or if you can't finish it and you can't take it home, then you offer it, to the fire. But there shouldn't be any leftovers after. Um, so some conductors will say, um, don't shower after you leave a sweat lodge ceremony because you've just cleansed yourself and you have medicine on you. And so they say, just leave that on and let it help you. Um, but sometimes, if it's raining or snowing or something, we can get pretty muddy coming out of the lodge, and the ground can be pretty muddy. So, it's okay. Go ahead and rinse off your legs and your feet before you go to bed. You don't want to go to bed all full of mud. So that's fine. You can do that. Um, I don't think anybody really will be rolling around in the mud, so you shouldn't have any in your hair or anything like that. So it's okay to go and rinse off your feet and clean yourself up a little bit. Um, but yeah, so that's basic sweat lodge um, protocol. So I guess we're having a 10-minute break.
Yeah, 10
and then
minutes.
and then we'll go on to pipe ceremony after that.
Okay, so we'll come back at 10 or sorry,
5 or 10 minutes. Yep.
2:45. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll get started in a few minutes. Just wanted to remind everybody with your email that you received today with the Zoom link in it, there should have been another link for our Survey Monkey. So it's just to get a bit of feedback from you, ways that you think we could improve our virtual sessions, or if there's a specific teaching or workshop that you would like to learn about, there's a section that you can put um, what kind of workshops you'd like to see in the future. I will share that link as well in the chat. So it's a pretty short survey. Would only take like 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, we'd love to hear back from you. Um, and then again, if there's any questions, we'll have time, shortly or near the end for you to speak your questions, or you can type them into the chat. Um, if you think of a question in a couple hours or a couple days, and you're like, oh, I wish I asked Kathy that question, then you can always email me. My email address is admin@anish.ca, and I can help connect you to Kathy with any questions that you might have had about today's session or a past session even. So we'll get going whenever you're ready, Kathy.
Just have to remember to unmute myself. I always forget. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about pipe ceremonies. And so what I'm basically doing is when you're just starting on your spiritual journey, your cultural journey, your healing journey, getting into the culture and the ceremonies, you probably have heard of some of these and you're thinking, I'd like to do that, or maybe I should do that first, or, something like that. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of going through the ones um, more well known, that you would probably hear about, um, and kind of explain what they are and why they are and how they are, um, so that you can see, what it is, and if is this something that might fit for you. So that's what I'm doing. The first was just basic protocols of trying to find somebody to work with. Second one was the spud lodge ceremony, and so the next one is the pipe ceremony. And so pipe ceremonies are usually conducted as a collective prayer ceremony. This could be for a person, a family, a community, or even a nation of people. And so the act of smoking the pipe represents taking the prayers for those who need them, putting them into that tobacco that we use to communicate with spirit helpers, with creator. We take those prayers, we put them into the tobacco, we put that tobacco into the pipe, and then we smoke that pipe to make our prayers visible. So this is important because it's said, and it's been said that just to speak the words means nothing, but to actually see the words being spoken makes them real and true. And so this is the act of taking those words and making them visible for all to see. And so that's what smoking that pipe and having those prayers go up to spirit world, spirit helpers, to creator. That's what that is taking those words and making them visible to see. So the sacred pipe, or for a Lakota person, is called a chanumpa. Chanumpa is pipe basically, and waka is sacred. So chanumpa waka is a sacred pipe. And so this is condensed. down from the words Chandi or Chanli in Dakota and Lakota, which means tobacco. Umpa means to smoke, and Waka again is sacred. So Chandi or Chanli, tobacco, Umpa is to smoke, and Waka is sacred. So instead of Chanli, Umpa, Waka, we say Chanumpa. So it's sort of condensed. So the sacred pipe came to us from White Buffalo Calf Woman. Um, we know, I mean, it's a very popular story. A lot of us know this story, but for those who don't know it, um, I'm just going to read it. I'm going to read it quickly because it's a bit of a long story, but if I read it, it won't take as long. So one day, two hunters went out to hunt for deer. One hunter was named Spotted Feather. He was of the people who were living in a good way, following all the teachings and respecting all of creation. The other hunter was named Running Bear. He was of the people who disregarded Ea and the teachings that were given. As they walked toward their hunting spot, they got into an argument about how the other was living. Are you going to share your hunt with others, or is this just for you and your teepee? Spotted Feather asked. You just never mind what I do with my own hunt, Running Bear replied, as they stopped to confront each other. There are elders and children in the camp who have no means of hunting for themselves. They would go hungry if we didn't share with them, yet your people don't help us to take care of them. You share nothing with them. Those are some of the teachings we received, to be kind and to be generous with what we have to share, argued Spotted Feather. You and your people think you're so good, but all you do all day is pray. You pray to something that doesn't even exist. We can't see this eon, and so it doesn't exist. It's just some kind of trickery, Running Bear said angrily. Just then, before Spotted Bear could reply, both men saw a white orb hovering over the ground not far from them. It grew larger as it got closer to them, and when it was close, they could see that it was a beautiful woman wearing a pure white buckskin dress. Running Bear immediately thought about himself, and he wanted to have his way with her. But Spotted Feather was sure that she was a spirit and had no such thoughts. She stopped on the path just ahead of them and motioned with her hand to Running Bear to come closer to her. Come and have your way with me, if that's what you want, if that's what you wish, she said to him. Running Bear looked at Spotted Feather and said, Come on, let's go. She's telling us to do what we want. Your mind is gone, Running Bear. She is surely Wakan. Don't go to her, Spotted Feather warned. But Running Bear did not listen. He went towards the beautiful maiden, and just as he got close to her, a cloud of smoke covered him. When the smoke cleared, a pile of bones lay where he last stood. The maiden then began to speak to Spotted Feather, which frightened him greatly. Don't be afraid. You didn't have bad thoughts of me. You are pure of heart. Go back to your Oyate and tell your people what you saw here. Tell them to prepare a teepee for me in the center of the camp. Eon lives in the spirit world and has sent me with a gift and teachings for your nation. When all is prepared, I will come from the west. Spotted Feather ran as fast as his legs would take him back to the camp, where he told his story of what happened. His people immediately started preparing for the maiden, gathering meat, berries, and gifts for her. They made her a brand new teepee, which they furnished with their finest furs and freshest medicines. Running Bear's people scoffed at the story Spotted Feather told and accused him of killing Running Bear and making up a story to hide the truth. When the teepee was ready, those who believed stood facing the west and waited for some sign of the mysterious woman. The others sat around the camp, snickering and shaking their heads. No one is coming, someone yelled out, while others danced around and called the believers fools. Just as the sun touched the horizon in the west, a figure came over the hill. It was the beautiful maiden that Spotted Feather had told them about. She had come just as she said she would, carrying a bundle in her arms. Some of those who didn't believe Spotted Feather's story became scared and hid in their teepees, while the others joined the rest of the nation and welcomed her. The woman entered the teepee and opened the bundle. Inside was a pipe. She circled around the teepee 4 times and then stopped in front of the people gathered there. She presented them with the pipe and proceeded to give instructions about how to fill it, when to smoke it, how to care for it. And she told the people, respect and honor this pipe and its teachings, and your people will have a good life, and life will go on as Ea intended. The woman stayed in the camp for many days, giving the people teachings of the pipe. Once she knew everyone in the camp believed in Ea and the teachings she brought with her, she left the camp the same way she arrived. But this time she would walk a short distance and then roll on the ground. Every time she rolled, she stood up as a buffalo. The first time, she stood up as a yellow buffalo, then a red buffalo, then a black buffalo. The last time she waved at the camp, rolled on the ground, and stood up as a white buffalo. And this is how she walked away over the hill into the sunset. So that's the story about how White Buffalo Calf Woman brought the pipe as a gift from Creator to help us to live in a good way. Um, so the following are basic protocols and a basic description of what usually takes place during a pipe ceremony, and this is where there would be many people. If you're seeing a spiritual caregiver and they want to have a pipe ceremony, it's going to be a very intimate setting, and so they will basically explain what's going to happen as they're going along. But you might be invited to a pipe ceremony, maybe an organization is putting on a pipe ceremony. Um, a community maybe will ask for a pipe ceremony, and so there'll be many people there. And so you might be invited, hey, they're having a pipe ceremony, you should come. And so this is, if you say, okay, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. This is what you can expect usually. Um, it's a good idea to ask questions again if you're not sure about what's going on, where to sit, that sort of thing. Again, women wear long skirts, dress respectfully. Men will wear pants, usually not shorts. Um, Non-binary, transgendered, dress how you're comfortable, as long as it's appropriate and respectful. Women on their moon time are usually allowed to stay for a pipe ceremony, but they have to just remember to keep their distance from any of the ceremonial objects, and they can't touch the pipe if it comes around. So usually you're allowed to stay, but again, ask questions. Ask, is it okay that I'm here? Most conductors, because it's a prayer ceremony, and we're praying collectively as a group, for whatever it is, it's usually okay that you stay. Sometimes they might say, oh no, sorry, you have to, you need to leave, or you need to step outside. It's not, again, it's not any form of disrespect. It's actually respecting you, and because you're in ceremony right now. um so it don't take it personally, or that it's any kind of shaming or anything like that, because it's not like that. There will be helpers present who will speak to the people and get everyone settled. So listen to their instructions carefully to avoid any potentially embarrassing situations later. So it's important to listen to what they say and the instructions that they give. So there might be chairs set up in a circle or blankets on the ground. The pipe carrier will have a section in a specific doorway for them. It's specific to them. So, for example, maybe they're sitting in the east facing west, and you'll recognize that this is where they're going to sit, because there'll be sometimes a buffalo robe and or a Pendleton blanket or a star blanket or something on the ground, um, and they'll have their ceremonial items sort of placed there, their bundles placed on top. And so no one should go anywhere near this area or walk over that blanket. Um, so once the helpers have the crowd settled, the pipe carrier will sit down and begin undoing all of these bundles. And so this is the beginning of the ceremony. So now is the time to be quiet and respectful. Um, so while the pipe carrier is preparing everything that they need, the helpers will go around, usually with a smudge, And if there's many people, it's usually a can of smudge that they have, and they carry it and they go around. And depending on the amount of people, if there's just a few, they might come around and have you smudge yourself um, personally. If there's many people, they might just go around with the can and allow the smoke to sort of go where it's going to go. Either way, it's just as good. Um, some people remove their rings and their glasses and their watches before they smudge. Um, and this is because of the belief that metal can hold negative energies. And so that, I guess, when they take them off and they put them aside and then they smudge, I guess it makes the smudge, more powerful, maybe, or more cleansing, I guess, because those negativities aren't there. But when they're done smudging, they pick those things back up and put them back on. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing to do or not. I personally don't take off my rings, because if they're holding negative energy, and this is just personal, if this metal and these earrings and these glasses that I'm wearing are holding negative energy, I would want to cleanse that, I would think. So for me, I leave them on. I mean, I take my glasses off because I'm going to be touching my face and I don't want smudge marks all over my glasses, but my rings and everything, they stay on. So I guess unless they tell you otherwise, it's a personal choice. I leave them on, many people take them off. Again, if they say, "Can you please remove your jewelry?" You're at their ceremony, so just follow instruction, remove it. If not, it's a personal choice. Um, where was I? So when the smudge comes around to you, so for those of you who don't know how to smudge or have never done it before, so what you'll do is you can say no thank you if you want to. You're still going to get smudge on you, around you. um if they want you to smudge, like if they come right up to you and you're supposed to smudge, if you don't want to, you don't have to. um that's your choice. You're still going to get smudged anyway because it's in the air. But if you want to and you haven't done it before, so the act of smudging basically is taking that medicine and bringing it to yourself for purification, for clarity, for um to open your mind, to what's gonna happen, to clear yourself of some negativity, negative thoughts. Maybe you've been having a bad morning. You want to get rid of that before you go into the ceremony, because you want to bring your best emotions and intentions and that sort of thing, and your best thoughts, and so you want to kind of cleanse yourself of those negativities. And so basically you're going to take some of that smoke sort of in your hands, and you bring it towards and up and over yourself for clarity. And then you're going to smudge, just you don't have to stick it right in your eye, but just up to, close your eyes and just sort of bring it up to your eyes. And that's so that you only see good things. um and then you bring it to your ears so that you'll only hear good things, and bring it to your mouth so that you'll only speak good things, and then bring it to your heart, and then the rest of your body, and that's pretty much it. um you see some people will just kind of real quick, I mean, that's just how they do it, and everyone's different. um so then that once you're done, or you can pass, you can say no, it's okay, and they'll just go on to the next person. um and then so once they're done, they go around and they've smudged everyone. A song will be sung usually, and this is while the pipe carrier actually fills their pipe. And so it's usually like a four direction song or a pipe filling song is what they call them. And then so it's really important to kind of be concentrating on what you're there for, and to be quiet and respectful while this is happening. Um, and then so when they're done doing that and they filled their pipe, they're going to speak about what it is they're there for, why they've been asked to come and smoke this pipe. Um, and so what will happen once they've told you what it's for, they usually will take that pipe, the helper will take that pipe and go around the room with it. Usually, sometimes not, but usually that's what happens. And so they'll either the and this is up to the pipe carrier how they want people to acknowledge this. Usually what will happen is, if there's not many people, if it's very sort of an intimate setting, just few people, everyone will take that pipe and hold it and pray with it. um if there's lots of people, they might just go around and have everyone just sort of touch that pipe, and then it goes to the next person. And while you touch that pipe, you're acknowledging w- the prayers that have gone into that tobacco, and you're thinking about what it is that we're praying for, because it's a collective prayer ceremony. So everyone in that room is praying for basically the same thing, whatever it is that that person was called. And so you bring all those prayers together. And so by acknowledging, by touching that pipe and acknowledging those prayers that went in there, you're also putting your prayers in there. And so it goes around the whole room like that. And if you're on your time, all you have to do is just kind of sit back, put your hand up, and that helper will understand that. They know that's what they do. They're helpers. They understand that. Or you can just say, you can just shake your head no. They'll understand. They won't ask questions. They won't say, but you have to, that kind of thing. They understand. You don't have to say any more. Just no, I can't. And they'll move on to the next person. um so once it's gone around and it gets back to the pipe carrier, then they'll light that tobacco, and they'll smoke and make their prayers visible, and they'll smoke until it's all gone. Um, once it's gone, they'll turn it and basically close that part of the ceremony. They turn their pipe to all the directions and close it. And then usually a pail of water, or it's usually a pail, or a big bowl of, like, sometimes they'll have a copper bowl, and they'll send that around. And so everyone will take a sip of water, because water is life. And so it's part of all of our ceremonies. And that sort of closes it. It's sort of the last, not the last thing, but that part of it, it sort of closes that, to drink that water. And then once that gets back around, then a spirit dish is made. And the spirit dish is made from the feast food. And so they make just a small dish of every one, a little bit of everything. Um, and then so that will then be given to maybe an elder in the room, or back to the pipe carrier, and that person will pray with that food, letting the spirit helpers know that this is an offering for you, for what we've done today. Um, and then once that's done, they usually hand it off back to the one of the helpers, who will take it outside, and there's usually a fire going outside. If not, they'll hang on to it, and then once they go back to home, they'll make a fire and put it in their fire. Because sometimes we can't have a sacred fire going, like if we're in the middle of the city sometimes, or if we're in a big office building and we're doing a pipe ceremony, we can't have a fire there. So we'll hang on to it, we'll wrap it up, and we'll take it home, and then we'll put it in a fire at home. But once that is done, then it's time to eat. Again, if there's elderly, they'll be fed first and they should be served by the young people. But while everyone is getting their food, the pipe carrier will be sitting there cleaning their pipe. They'll clean it out and they'll start packing things back up and, kind of taking their time doing that. And if somebody comes, usually what will happen is we'll have a young person come. It won't be one of their helpers, it'll be someone else from maybe the community. A young person will come and try and offer them food, and they'll say no, give it to somebody, because the reason why they're taking their time and putting everything away is because they will eat last. That person who has conducted that ceremony will be the last to get their food, the last to eat. And they do this to show respect and humility, that they are doing this ceremony for the people, not for themselves. And so the people go first. The people will eat first. And so they're the last to get their plate. So once the helpers have seen that everyone is eating, then they'll go and get a plate for that pipe carrier. So the helpers know, they know that protocol, because they won't, a lot of times that pipe carrier won't accept that food yet. It's no, these people aren't eating yet, I won't accept that food. So which is why it's, when people come around with feast food, you take it. Even if you're not hungry, you take it anyway, because that person running that ceremony might be waiting for everyone to be eating, or everyone to have food first before they eat. And if you keep refusing the food and you're not sitting there with any food, they're not going to eat until you have a plate. So it's just, respectful to take that, to take that food when it comes around. And again, they won't want to have any leftovers. So if they keep coming around, you just keep kind of taking it. Um, and yeah, you can take it home, or offer it to the fire. If there's no fire, you take it home with you and then you offer it to your own fire, or you can put it in the bush on your way home. Um, so it's important though to remain sort of quiet and respectful even while you're eating, because that might not be the end of the ceremony. Usually it is. The feast usually signifies the end of the ceremony, but sometimes they might have a giveaway after. And so it's important to just kind of stay and remain, and keep an eye on what's going on around you, so that it's not over yet, and or you get up and leave and it hasn't ended yet. But when it's over, that pipe carrier will, either they'll stand up and they'll speak and say and thank everyone for coming, and thank you for participating in these prayers, or the person who sponsored it will come up and speak. And so now it's done. And it's a good idea then to ask if there's anything you can do to help clean up and stuff like that. um, but one thing that some people might not realize is that the pipe is given to certain people, people who are called upon to do that work. So not everyone is meant to be a pipe carrier, and that's okay. Um, so I mean, if you believe that you had maybe some dreams where you're carrying a pipe, or you have a pipe, it's a good idea to take those dreams to someone. Um, maybe they'll take it into ceremony and interpret those dreams for you, and you might end up being a pipe carrier, and you're called upon to do some ceremonies, and then you'll start learning those. But like I said, not everyone is a pipe carrier, and that's okay. Not everyone was meant to be. um so I just saw a question. What about women who are pregnant? So during a pipe ceremony, that's fine. If you're pregnant, that's um there's nothing really in that ceremony that um that's going to affect the baby or anything like that. So it's totally fine. Sweat lodge, we don't usually allow women who are pregnant to go in to the sweat lodge, um, because what that represents is the lodge itself is the womb of Mother Earth, and so you're going back into the womb to be reborn, clean, cleansed, purified, clean as when you came into this world. When you're pregnant, you are already doing that ceremony, and so there's no, when you're already in ceremony, there's no point in going into another one at the same time. It just doesn't work that way. um Plus, even though that water is really hot inside where the baby is, when you go into a sweat lodge, you can overheat because you have hot water inside you. I mean, if you had a child and you feel, if if you've had your water break, like I have, and I felt that water come out, it was hot. Um, to me, it felt really hot. I was like, wow, that's really hot. I can't believe that baby's in there. So you have hot water inside you, and then you go into a sweat lodge and it's really hot, and it can get brutally hot. You can actually overheat. And so you don't want to do that because then you're putting your baby at risk. So sometimes, depending on the situation, we'll allow a pregnant woman to come in just for the first round. And that, because that round is usually really short and it's not quite as hot as the second or third rounds. So, and that's depending on the situation. If they really need to come into that sweat lodge, we'll make sure that it's gentle for them and they'll only come in that first round, and then they have to leave because it's going to get too intense, too hot for them. So again, speak to the conductor and they'll let you know um, what you should do or if you can come in. So the last three are pretty short. I'm getting low on time here. I always say, oh, I won't take the whole 2 hours, and then I just go on and on. I'm like my coworker Christine. Hey, Christina, I know she's watching. One of her names is on and on because she can go on and on. I think that's me too, Christina. Um, so Vision Quest. So one of the things you may have heard of if you're just beginning is Vision Quest, and so I wanted to talk about that. A Vision Quest is a ceremony that you will do alone, but while under close supervision of a spiritual caregiver. You will have already been working with this spiritual caregiver for a while already before doing this ceremony, because they need to prepare you and give you teachings um, that you're going to need in order to do this ceremony. But even though you will have been working with this person and you'll get the teachings from them, I'm just going to talk a little bit about it. So in Dakota or Lakota, it's Hambadechea or Hambalechea. So Hambade or Hambale means to fast, and the Chea part means to cry. So crying for a vision, basically. And so that means you will cry all night for 4 nights in order to have your questions answered or to receive the teachings you need, or to receive the guidance that you seek. You will be alone. You will be tested. You will be visited. You will be scared. And you will cry. That those are for certain. But the only people that have to do this ceremony are those who have been chosen or called upon to do this work, to do certain ceremonies. So there are certain ceremonies that if you're going to do them, you have to have gone through this ceremony in order to get those teachings that you need to run those ceremonies. So the only people that have to do this are those who have been called upon or chosen to do certain ceremonies. So they'll fast for 4 days and 4 nights, and they'll cry for their visions or their teachings for the 4 nights. And after that, though, every year they'll go out for 1 day and 1 night, and that is to um, reconnect with Mother Earth. Just basically um, seek any more guidance or teachings that you might need, or to receive or meet any new spirit helpers that you might be um, called upon to work with. So, once a year after that first year, it's 1 day and 1 night. But once a person makes this commitment, they can never let it go. They can't one day say that they're tired and don't want to be a medicine person or a ceremony person anymore. Um, there's nowhere that they can hide to escape the duties that they made a commitment to. Um, there's no way to hide from the spirit helpers. And so this is a hard life. Because people will always come looking for help, looking for healing, for prayers, for guidance, day in and day out, you'll be called upon. So this isn't uneasy. This isn't an easy thing to do, and this isn't something that, if you know what you would be getting into, this isn't something that you would ask for, really. It's because it's a hard life. Um, but if you're called upon to do it, then it's something that you'll have to do. Um, so there is a ceremony that is used to reconnect to Mother Earth, to ground yourself, to recharge your spiritual energy. And so this is just basically a fasting ceremony. And it's not the same as the Hamdechaya ceremony. Now, some people might have visions or spiritual dreams while doing a fasting ceremony, but these aren't really the same sort of dreams or guidance that you would receive during a Hamdechaya ceremony. So, the spiritual caregiver that prepares you for the fasting ceremony will interpret these dreams for you, and let you know what they meant. If you've been called upon to be a medicine person, a ceremony person, the spiritual caregiver will work with you. The spiritual caregiver that works with you, they will already know this even before you do. They will already know this from sitting in ceremony with you. Their spirit helpers will tell them this, but they won't necessarily tell you that until you come to that realization yourself. And then they'll say, I know, I already know that. We've been waiting for you to come forward. And so they will know if you have been called upon or not. So some people might say, oh, I've been called upon to do this work. I had this dream, or I had this vision, or a spirit helper came to me. But that person, being a ceremony person, they'll already know whether that's true or not. And at the same time, though, you know, knowing what is expected of you to be a ceremony person or a medicine person, having to go through that vision quest, I don't know why anyone would ask for that. It That's a hard life. It really is. So, I don't ask for that. There's there's a certain ceremony that I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm too scared because I have to do that. I have to go through that 4 day and 4 night, and I haven't done it yet. I will probably someday, but I feel like I'm not ready. I feel like I'm not. It's scary because that's a commitment. And you know what? I have small children yet. And so when you make that commitment, that's for life, and it can get consuming of your life. People will come day in, day out, no matter what you're doing. They're going to come to your door and they're going to want help. So I think I'm going to wait on that for a little while. Um, I know we're almost out of time here, but I only have two short things left to get through. One is the Sundance ceremony. So a lot of people think, oh, this sounds like a good thing for me to do. I'm just starting out. I want to go learn. I'm going to go Sundance, right? So another quote, this is another quote from Life's Journey, Albert Whitehat Sr., and this is from chapter 11, page 119. You know, the Sundance is something you don't take lightly. You have to be very clear about why you're doing it. You don't go into that dance and ask, what can I do? The Sundance is not a place to seek or validate a dream or vision. It's not a place to seek a gift or powers to try and become a medicine man or woman. The Sundance is an annual gathering of all the powers on earth and in the universe. We call them together knowing that both negative and positive energies are present, and that's why we prepare for at least 1 year before that first year of sundancing. You live the life of a sundancer, the life of a wolakota, a peaceful person. So that's what he says about the Sundance. And the Sundance is, for Dakota Lakota people, it's the most important ceremony we have. In this ceremony, the dancer makes a commitment to dance for 4 days from sunup to sundown. And so this has to be done for the right reasons. The Sundance is not a place to seek a spiritual gift or ability, or to believe that you can become a medicine person or a ceremony person just by finishing the 4 years, because it doesn't happen that way. The Sundance ceremony, you'll sacrifice and you'll suffer to have your prayers or your questions answered. Um, so the dancers use that tree as a direct connection to spirit world, their ancestors and their spirit helpers. And so the act of fasting, dancing, and whistling are meant to bring a person's body, mind, and spiritual energy to a certain level of vibration in order to make that connection to spirit world. And this is not something like Albert Whitehat said that should be done on a whim or because you thought it would be spiritually enlightening. This is a serious ceremony which should be taken seriously and done for the right reasons. And some of these reasons could be, to pray, to ask for help for a sick relative, to ask for help for self, to ask for guidance on how best to work with community, things like that. So it's really about getting guidance and getting that guidance from spirit world. Now, controversy. It's controversy time. Um, I heard a bad joke. I mean, I've heard this many times. It's old. I'm sure everyone else has heard it too. It's about going to church. um, that some of those who attend are saints on Sunday and sinners for the rest of the week. That's the bad joke I heard. Anyway, I mean, honestly, the same can be said for some people who participate in Sundance. They come to ask for guidance and healing for themselves or for others. But then after the Sundance is over, they go home and are right back into their old ways, the negativity, the alcohol. They go right back into it. And we see this because I come from a Sundance family and my husband also comes from a Sundance family. And so in the summertime, like we're always at Sundance, it seems. We see this all the time where people do this year after year. They come, they're sacred for 4 days, and then they go home and they go right back into it, which is unfortunate because they're not taking that guidance and they're not taking that those teachings from spirit, from the spirit world, from their spirit helpers, and they're not putting it into practice. Um, and so we talk about this and we believe that it might be because the person has just jumped into it without really truly understanding what the commitment really is, um, because they're looking for recognition or maybe a gift or ability or something like that, and they're not doing it for the right reasons. And so, I mean, eventually they're going to figure out that they're not going to get what they're seeking from this ceremony. um, but yeah, it it happens everywhere, I guess. um, and another part of the Sundance, a long time ago, men would drag buffalo skulls to ask for forgiveness from a person or from a family or a community and from creator, for something that they did. And it was usually because he took a life or maybe he was abusive to his wife or children. And so this was a ceremony that was done in private. It was only those who were required to be there were invited. And so he would be pierced on the back and hooked up by ropes, to a number of buffalo skulls. And he would walk around in a circle in front of those he was seeking guidance from, dragging those skulls until either his skin broke or he couldn't go on, just exhaustion, just couldn't go any farther. And so, if those who he was seeking forgiveness from went to him when he was finished walking, went to him and embraced him, then he was forgiven. If they turned and walked away, then he wasn't forgiven. And that was something that he was just going to have to live with and maybe try again at some other point. But when the Sundance came back from having to go underground, because we had to hide for a while because our ceremonies were banned, this ceremony was brought to the Sundance and became part of it. Um, it's used today as a way of asking for life, sometimes for self or for a loved one, as well as still asking for forgiveness. But when young men today see this ceremony, right away they want to do it. They want to, because they believe that it looks cool, or it's going to make them look courageous, or that they're going to gain some kind of recognition or respect for having done such a difficult thing. And some Sundance leaders have begun to realize this and have moved this ceremony away from the main Sundance Arbor to a place where there's no spectators. No one can see this other than the people who need to be there. And so what they've noticed is that they've had a decline in the number of young men who want to do this. So obviously they're not doing it for the right reasons. Um, if you would like to Sundance, if you've heard about it, people say, "Oh, it's so beautiful, you need to come Sundance." You know, make sure you find out who who are the lodge keepers. Talk to them, get to know them, find out if you're doing it for the right reasons. Um, and they'll help you prepare. They'll let you know what you need to do to prepare. And it's a beautiful ceremony. And it's also, in that preparation, it's important to know some of the songs that they're going to be singing, because they can help you. Some of those songs are made to lift your spirits back up, so that because the singers know when people are starting to get really tired and dragged down, and they'll sing those specific songs. to lift your spirits back up and get you, dancing again, and wake you up, sort of. So part of the preparing is learning some of the songs. So that was Sundance. Um, and the last thing that I can get through fairly quickly is about a bundle. So what is a bundle? Sacred bundle, it's called sometimes. And so this is a personal collection of ceremonial or sacred objects that a person has received, earned, or collected over a number of years. And it's called a bundle because it's usually a blanket that is tightly wrapped around all your sacred objects. And so it's a little bundle. Um, so what's in a bundle is unique and personal to you. Everyone's bundle is different. They can be very large, with multiple bags and sort of boxes and all kinds of stuff, or it can be very small with just a few items. And so the bundle contains things that have great meaning for you. Um, Usually, when a person is just starting their bundle, it'll have maybe a stone, um, some shells, maybe tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, cedar, possibly a smudge bowl, maybe a feather or a couple of feathers. You'll have a little pack of matches in there. You could have a rattle or other medicines, some cloth. It's good to have some cloth. A cup of some kind, a copper cup or a wooden cup. You might have a pipe already, and that will be in there wrapped up. Some people have a buffalo skull. Obviously, that'll be wrapped up separately, but they'll have a buffalo skull or some other kind of a skull. They might have some altar poles, a drum, a hand drum. It's all depends on the person and what they've done so far, what they've accumulated. But it's important that we don't collect things that we're not going to use. So everything that's in my bundle, I use all of it. Um, if I find I'm not using something, I'll give it away because that everything that we have in there has a spirit, and so it's disrespectful to that spirit of that item, to not use it. Um, your bundle should be feasted at least once a year, and so this is basically pulling everything out, smudging it all down, making a spirit dish, and acknowledging all of those things that you use. um, no matter what you have in your bundle, a woman on her moon time shouldn't handle it or anything in it. And this is just, like I said, because of the power that you carry, you can drain energy out of stuff. Um, so we leave our bundles alone. We usually know when we're going to be on our time, and so we'll leave it alone at that time. If for some reason it needs to be moved and there's no one else around, like, what could happen? You keep your bundle in the basement and the basement's flooding. Okay, you need to take it and move it and put it somewhere away from danger. No one else is around. Okay, so you take it and you place it somewhere out of danger's way, but you then need to take care of it as soon as you can. After that, take it out, smudge it, feast it, that sort of thing. Put that energy back into it because you've taken some out of it. Um, and again, like I said, it's just because of the power that we carry when we're on our time. Again, keep it in a safe place, away from high traffic areas, and this is just so that kids won't get into it, start playing with stuff. The family pet, the dog won't get in there and start eating your rattles or whatever. And if you have visitors, that you might have women on their time come into your home, and you don't want them you know taking the energy from your bundle, so just sort of somewhere out of the way. um Now, having a bundle doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a pipe carrier or do ceremonies. Your bundle contains things that help you. specifically. So if you have been called upon to do ceremonies by the spirit helpers, your bundle items will still only help you so that you can help others through the ceremony that you're given. So your bundle is very personal to you. Um, so those things are things that you use to help yourself to help others, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. um, but yeah, so it doesn't matter how big it is. What's in there, it's, you know, how you use it to help yourself. So those are just, you know, my basic protocols and teachings for some ceremonies that you might want to, you might think, I think I'll go to this one, or I'm just getting started, I don't know where to go, I'm gonna go check out a Sundance. Like, you know, go check it out. You don't have to participate. As soon as you get there, you can just kind of check it out, see what it's about, ask questions, talk to the Sundance leader. um, just like any other ceremony, you don't have to participate. You can go and just be there and listen to the songs and listen to the teachings. It's up to you whether you want to participate, but make sure you know that it's coming from the heart and you're doing it for the right reasons. Is That's, you know, the most basic thing, is that it comes from the heart and you're doing it for the right reasons. So that's all I got for now.
Oh, those are some great teachings. You covered a lot, that's for sure. I'm surprised, but very thankful. I think I definitely would have appreciated hearing a lot of this when I earlier in my introduction to ceremony and protocol. Um, so yeah, thank you. Um, I know we've gone past our 3:30 mark, but does anybody have any questions? You're welcome to unmute yourself if you have a bit of time to hang around for a few minutes. And you can type out your question as well. Um, Also, if you are just, you know, thinking like I am, and you don't have any questions right away, you can email me later as well, admin, admin at anish.ca. And yeah, I can connect you with Kathy. Um,
Oh, there's, sorry, I wanted to actually share. So I showed you Life's Journey, which is a great book to read. It's got a lot of knowledge and guidance in there from Albert Whitehat Sr., who we lost a few years ago. Another good book actually is Walking in the Sacred Manner. This is Tilda Long Soldier and Mark St. Pierre wrote this book, and it's about women healers, dreamers, and pipe carriers from the past, from history, and how those things have sort of gotten lost, and now it's mostly men we see doing these things. But it talks about women who are known to have done that. And also, if you want a good sort of idea of how life was when we lived on the prairies, in teepee camps, and still, you know, hunted bison, hunted buffalo, and stuff like that. Luther Standing Bear wrote a book. I mean, he was born in 1880 something, so he's been gone for a long time now. But he wrote a book um, about life on the prairies, and so he, as a little boy living in a teepee, remembers when the first different people came across the country. He writes about that, so it gives you a good look at what life was like back then. So it's called Land of the Spotted Eagle. So yeah, so Amanda can put those titles in the chat. They're three really good books. They're all well, the two, Land of the Spotted Eagle and Life's Journey, are Lakota based books. The Walking in the Sacred Manor, they actually interviewed many different women from different tribes. So, but they're really good reads, all three of them.
I didn't quite catch the full titles, but
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Land of the Spotted Eagle.
and that one's by Luther.
Yeah.
Standing there. The other one,
Walking in the Sacred Manor is Tilda Long Soldier.
okay. Tilda Long.
Soldier. And Life's Journey is Albert Whitehat Sr.
That's the one that you shared earlier, right?
Yeah, that's this
Yeah,
one.
I had put that in the chat earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But great books. I love learning about new books. I recently started a collection and I had quite a few books left over from my Native Studies degree, so I feel excited whenever I learn about a new interesting book.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So if nobody has any questions, then maybe we will finish up here, just so that everybody can kind of get on with their afternoon, so we don't take up too much more time. But thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kathy, for taking the time out of your day to share with us a lot of really great and important lessons on protocol. Uh, I know that I'll definitely be recalling a lot of this information when we finally are able to be out and about doing ceremony again. So
I wish we
thank
had
you.
more time because there's many more ceremonies I could have talked about, but those
Yes,
are just
for
the
sure.
main ones that we always hear about. So
Maybe we can have a part two, a follow up.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
but yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Again, there's the survey link in your email. So if you have a moment or two later, we'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, tomorrow we have an event with Dakota Elder Paha,
Yeah.
Paha, and she's going to be sharing on lived experience of healing, sacredness, and indigeneity. So that'll be at 1 o'clock.
That's my auntie, by the way.
Yeah, yes, yeah, and her husband did your wedding ceremony, right, Wambadi? Yeah,
Mhm.
he's been with us too. So everyone is invited to attend tomorrow's session as well. So hopefully we'll see you then. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye, everyone.